So I think Anna meant mostly me when she said critics. So here I am. But actually today I want to be only positive because having DLD here means nothing but positive. So I first heard of DLD some 7 years ago when I felt really special, really privileged, as I saw an invite to go and visit DLD Munich, which is like the main event of DLD, and spend time with, at the hottest European conference, with some of the smartest people Europe has, with best startups, opinion makers, digital giants. So I went to Munich. I felt inspired every minute I was there. I learned a lot. I made some great friends who also happen to be these, opinion makers and industry leaders. But I landed back to Belgrade with mixed feelings. So there was this, unbelievable personal experience I had, selfishly. And there was also the reality that as I met these people, and they asked me, so where do you come from? And I say, Serbia. They asked me, really? And that really was said in a way that I was an anomaly, because they've never seen anybody from Serbia at that event. So that felt kind of a bummer. At the same time, usually when you go to Munich or anywhere in Europe, you find at least a few people who speak Serbian or Croatian or whatever you want to call the language in this part of the world. And there I haven't met any. So I was like speaking Serbian in my thoughts, and that was it. So as I was aware of this reality, and if somebody told me that 7 years from that time there would be a DLD event in Belgrade, that we would host, that it will be opened by our Prime Minister, who I really have seen from kind of first row is devoted, and her government really supports the digital agenda, that they are doing their best, which is sometimes not enough, but at least they are trying to do their best to put the digital agenda or to prepare the country for the industries of the future as really one of the top priorities. More importantly, so this was very important, but more importantly, if somebody told me that 7 years from that DLD in Novi Sad, Belgrade and Niš, there would be hundreds of companies. So I see many of you actually in the audience. So we're talking hundreds of companies that are actually already, part of that future that Steffi and then Anna were talking about. I guess my intro point is, we've made huge progress over these 7 years. One I, an optimist, wasn't expecting. But I also think, this is just the beginning. So you might still remember when Steffi said, German government could learn. So what I've learned is that governments around the world and Europe are clueless about the future. All they know is, when is the next election term and what they need to tell to people so that, they stay in government. Nobody thinks, beyond. So why is that important? Well, because, with the fourth industrial revolution, in which there is a fusion of, technologies that kind of blur the lines between physical, digital and biological spheres. So with that happening, the entire world is kind of being reset. So we all have the opportunity to do our best now. The pace of change has never been this fast or this big. So what does it mean? So like all of these industries, that used to be, our pride, and that have collapsed in the previous decades, and at best case are struggling to be competitive globally, because it's hard to compete, with China and India and some other, really massive population countries. So all of these industries are going to be reinvented. So it's not going to matter, whether you were doing this or that, because it's only going to matter what you can do in the future. So here's a fact that proves that, and I've picked a German thing because DLD has, German roots. So today's modern car that, you buy at the car dealer, if it's new, has 100 million lines of code in it. So 100 million lines of code. It has more software parts than it has physical parts. And all that software receives and processes input, tons of information from hundreds of sensors, and then it essentially tells these parts that are mechanical using microcontrollers, tells them what to do. So your car today, if we're talking about just comparing numbers, is way closer to a very complex software hardware thing, a computer, than it is to a car. Not to mention that my car recognizes my alcohol infected breath and doesn't allow me to drive. So it reads my biological state. It's a Volvo, so here's a commercial, but this is the car of today. So imagine what is going to happen when what I've been describing starts touching agriculture. When we start placing sensors in soil, when software starts optimizing and automating how we grow, our crops, when tractors become, autonomous vehicles that plow the fields on their own. So that's going to revolutionize agriculture. It's going to change everything forever. And actually, you don't need to imagine much, because Professor Vesna is going to show you how what I've just described looks like in Serbian fields, which are one of the few fields in the world that look like this. At a smaller scale, but we might make them large scale. So I also want to speak, from my own experience, because I hate people that, teach, but have never done anything in their lives. That's bullshit. So I've actually done a few things in my life. And, one of the things I've done was sitting in a front seat and watching or enjoying Nordeus grow and reach 200 million people, which is 1 out of 16 men on this planet, in every country of the world, including North Korea, Antarctica, Vatican, or whatever you want to consider a country, through their smartphones as they were playing our games. So actually the percentage is even higher if we go to Germany, where everybody has a smartphone. But an average Antarctica resident or North Korea doesn't have a smartphone. So historically looking, what I was seeing, 200 million people being touched by our services and products, is, unprecedented achievement for a Serbian company. And the only reason why it is so is because we were the first ones that were living in the age when this is possible. So I don't really think, we are so special compared to many other people in this country, especially historically. But, before there were smartphones that were so powerful, connected to internet all the time, with a lot of storage, battery life, etc., what we've done was impossible, technically from a business standpoint, etc. So we've just used the opportunity. So speaking of the opportunity, so this opportunity of billions of people connected with powerful mobile devices is only going to be multiplied as the emerging technology breakthroughs breakthroughs in fields such as artificial intelligence, robotics, material science, Internet of Things, biotechnology, etc. So there is a plethora of these. So as these, get multiplied with this connectivity and processing power, the opportunity we're going to have from Serbia and from Europe is also going to be unprecedented. So forget about Serbian customs that you need to call and ask how you can export your box somewhere. Forget about all of these complexities and even lack of common sense sometimes. That toll is going to disappear and become completely irrelevant. As, again, trust me, I've seen and witnessed with my own eyes. So there is, I can't quote him, but I'm a friend with Alec Ross, who is a best-selling author, and his best-selling book is called Industries of the Future. So I've stolen his title, but it's fine. So we were chatting in New York about a month ago, discussing even this event, Serbia, etc. He's American, and he told me like your biggest, because he follows sports. So interesting thing. He's an American that is really into sports. So watches everything we do: tennis and Djokovic, basketball. He actually knows Serbia played USA in the Olympics finals and World Cup finals. So that type of a guy. And he told me like, what's very interesting about Serbia is that you guys rock in small teams. So your population, which is miserable compared to some other countries, and what you produce in teams that are 3, 4, 5, 7, even 11 people occasionally, but less often than 5. So what you produce is really special. And actually, if you look at Europe as a whole and team sports, Europe is punching above its weight. When Europe tries, to operate on a thousands or hundreds of thousands of people scale, we cause world wars and other type of shit. So if we stick to small teams, we are really great. And these small teams, when they are also interdisciplinary, are able to create amazing value, especially in the age of today. So for example, from Serbia, you get to have, a leading genome sequencing company being, 2 blocks from my office. Or a small team in Novi Sad that is able to scan your face within seconds and recreate a virtual you that looks, talks, smiles, and, mimics everything you do with your face identically how you do. And that's like deep tech, which is very sexy and very valuable in today's market, especially the market of tomorrow. Another important thing for us in Europe, especially in Serbia, is that, again, I was there, so you have to trust me. So capital is irrelevant compared to talent for the things we're talking about. So there is no money that can buy you or that you can invest and produce what I just described people do in Novi Sad, in 2 days. You need to spend years learning, discovering, researching, developing to get to that result. And these people, they don't need to be paid millions of dollars. They just need to have a nice life. I guess my time is up, but I'm going to steal a few more minutes and shorten things. So in this world where you need small teams, you don't need capital, but you need talent. Essentially all you need to ensure is like that, the schools are good, that kids are getting good knowledge, and that the quality of life is good enough so that, they really want to stay here and, live where they were born. And actually, again, Europe, especially Serbia and Belgrade, even though it's unsuspected, offers really good quality of life if your professional life is satisfied. So long story short, if you do something cool and you make good money, there is nothing that's going to make you move to another place. Again, I moved, I came back. And I have plenty of people in my company and other companies that did the same. Education also has a lot of tradition around here and in Europe. There is also some really cool innovation happening in innovation. So what Anna was talking about, so there is close to 0 countries in the world where 12-year-olds learn to code in Python. Like, again, trust me on this one. So I was in New York, I was in London a few months before, and you remember that, you know, thing I opened the thing, like, really, when I told them I'm from Serbia? So when I now tell people that our kids learn Python, they're like, what the fuck? You're the same, you know, prehistoric human beings that, you know, 7 years ago we didn't know of. And now, like, how do I make my government teach Python? And it's going to be very hard. But it's doable. But we already did it, so we have competitive advantage. Now I'm going to skip a huge part of my talk. But long story short, there is examples that this is possible, and that, you know, we've done it, that Europe has done it. There is only one, you know, risk, which is us not moving fast enough. Because this is not the first time, you know, this society had a good starting position. You know, 100 years ago, as my great-grandfather, you know, liberated this city in World War I, losing his left leg, you know, we also had a good start. We were the winners of something that was supposed to be a new age of, you know, mankind. I'm sure, you know, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, there was also a position when our society was like, yeah, this is looking good. Like, you know, we are not ruled by anybody. We have this empire. Things are cute. Everything is sexy. And then here we are today, and I'm talking to you again about, you know, a chance for us to break, you know, chains of a third world country and become a society which actually has a bright future. So for that to happen, we need to move fast. We cannot not do anything. So what needs to happen is the following: education, education, and education, like top 3 spots. Especially technology, entrepreneurship in schools, life sciences. Value even a software engineer can create if he or she is incapable of working in a team, if they cannot communicate, if they don't understand how they're going to sell what they're making, is orders of magnitude lower than if they had that knowledge. Government's job is to just support how these things change and not to block things, you know, like the latest law in traffic or whatever that kind of prevents Uber and digital, you know, things. So government needs to, like, allow us to change things and support us to do that. I would also like to encourage everybody to, like, you know, think what you can do. So here I am, not sitting in my company and doing my primary job, but actually talking to you. I'm not paid for this, as you might imagine. I spend 100x more hours with Digital Serbia and many amazing people that I see in the audience here today, trying to figure out what can we do to enable this change, especially for, you know, the generations that are coming. So think about what you can do as well, because nobody's going to do anything for us. Like, we need to do things for us. Whether it's through Digital Serbia or any other initiative that is trying to move things forward. And the last but not the least, I really want to thank, you know, DLD and everybody that came to Belgrade, to Serbia, maybe for the first time. Thank you for coming, because we need to be discovered. I am sick of hearing really everywhere I go. Less and less though. So, like, share the love. Hopefully you're having a great time and you're going to come back. As you come back, I hope your visits are going to be fruitful, that, you know, we're going to be able to create some amazing value together from Serbia, from Europe, for the world. I tried to keep it as short as possible. Sorry, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.